Yo, yo, what up, my beautiful dowdies? How's everyone doing today? I'm your host, Val. Let's talk about Yukong. I think Yukong was for a lot of people the most disappointing character in Honkai Star Rail. Yukong was always that character that was loved by maybe a lot of people because she was a fox girl, you know, everyone liked her design or whatever, but her gameplay and her kit always threw people off and they could not make Yukong work. So what went wrong with Yukong? So what does Yukong do? Let's look at that first. Yukong's basic attack, very simple, deals 70% of Yukong's attack as imaginary damage to a target enemy. You know, straightforward, like most of the basic attacks in the game. Then her skill obtains 2 stacks of roaring bowstrings to a maximum of 2 stacks. When roaring bowstring is active, the attack of all allies increases by 80%. And every time an ally's turn, including Yukong, ends, Yukong loses 1 stack of roaring bowstring. When it's the turn where Yukong gains roaring bowstrings by using skill, roaring bowstrings will not be removed. This is probably going to be one of the most problematic things of why Yukong is not being played, but let's continue with the other abilities first. Talent. Basic attack additionally deals imaginary damage equal to 80% of Yukong's attack and increases the toughness reduction of this attack by 100%. This effect can be triggered again after 1 turn. Ultimate. If Roaring Bowstrings is active on Yukong when her ultimate is used, additionally increase all allies crit rate by 28% and crit damage by 65%. At the same time, deals imaginary damage equal to 380% of Yukong's attack to a single enemy. Now, if you listen to that, that sounds pretty huge, right? And then her technique. After using her technique, Yukong enters sprint mode for 20 seconds. In sprint mode, her movement speed is increased by 35%, and Yukong gains 2 stacks of roaring bowstrings when she enters battle by attacking enemies. Then her white traces. Yukong can resist 1 debuff application for 1 time. This effect can be triggered again after 2 turns. When Yukong is on the field, imaginary damage dealt by all allies increased by 12%. When Roaring Bowstrings is active, Yukong generates 2 additional energy every time an ally takes action. Now her kit is very straightforward, you know, just harmony stuff, buff everything. Yukong does it in her own way. Imaginary damage boosting, crit rate, crit damage, giving herself energy regen a little bit, resisting 1 debuff, you know, just normal harmony stuff. Now, the roaring bowstrings is the main reason why Yukong would be quote-unquote unusable or very hard to use, or people are not using Yukong. Roaring bowstrings is going to be the core mechanic of trying to buff your teammates. When Roaring Bowstrings is not active, you do not have the buff. If we take Ron May for an example, Ron May is an extremely strong character. While she uses her skill, everyone gets buffed for a very long time and you don't have to worry about that anymore. And every time she takes a turn, 1 stack will be reduced. This is the complete opposite almost on Roaring Bowstrings. Roaring Bowstrings only has 2 stacks, and every time an ally's turn, including Yukong, ends, you will lose 1 stack of Roaring Bowstrings. So this is very clunky to use in game. So every time someone takes a turn, you will lose 1 stack, and you only have 2 to begin with. So this means if 2 people take turns, the buff is already over, right? So it's very hard to use Yukong. Now, this is a bit changed with Eidolons. Her Eidolon 1. At the start of battle, increases the speed of all allies for 10% for 2 turns. Now, this is a pretty cool thing to have, you know. This could be very useful for high speed compositions, and if you're trying to zero cycle stuff, this could be like a cool thing as well. Then Eidolon 2. When any ally's current energy is equal to its energy limit, Yukong regenerates an additional 5 energy. This effect can only be triggered once for each ally. The trigger count is reset after Yukong uses her ultimate. So this is just more energy regeneration. This could be useful, but could also be a bit clunky at the same time. Third one is just skill, basic attack enhancement. Then E4. When Roaring Bowstrings is active, Yukong deals 30% more damage to enemies. This is kind of whatever, you know. This could be cool if you're trying to really break the enemy's weakness or just getting some more damage in while you're buffing everyone. It's not the worst, but could be a little bit better. And this is not really something that is going to completely change Yukong, right? E5, ultimate and talent. Then E6. This is the big one. When Yukong uses her ultimate, she immediately gains 1 stack of Roaring Bowstrings. So when you cast your ultimate, you will actually get the buff. So not only do you instantly proc your ultimate's passive, you can now choose whenever you want to give your allies the buff. If Roaring Bowstrings is active on Yukong when your ultimate is used, additionally increases all allies crit rate and crit damage, you know. So when you have E6, the ultimate will always apply this buff, which is very nice, and that's going to be very big and crucial for playing with Yukong. I think we can all agree that Yukong is one of the better units to put with Dill, you know, Dunhang and Bibitor Lune. Giving crit rate and crit damage to the entirety of the party is actually a crazy thing when you think about it. That is more than Bronya and Fushuan combined, right? It's a insane buff, and her harmony capability should, technically speaking, be S tier if you think about it, right? It should be God tier. 28% crit rate and 65 crit damage, and then to everyone in the party. That is wild. When you actually give it a good thought, that is one of the better buffs that we have in this game. So why can we not use Yukong? I think Yukong is one of the more misunderstood characters in Honkai Star Rail. I think a lot of people don't really understand how to maximize Yukong's value, and that's why they give up. Or Yukong is very hard to build, you know? It's a mixture of the two. Yukong needs a lot of speed tuning, needs a lot of good team building on top of that. If you want to use Yukong, the whole team needs to like synergize well with her. And on top of that, you as a player have to be good, you know? You actually have to be good at managing her roaring bowstrings. It can be very tough to manage it sometimes, and you really have to think ahead and like, okay, here I want to ult, here or maybe I want to scale. Do I have enough skill points now? When do I want to do the big nuke damage right now? Should I save it for the next round? You know, there's a lot of consistent thinking by using this character. And I think Yukong... Hey, pause the video right now. Over 90% of you people that watch my videos actually are not subscribed to my channel. It would mean a lot to me if you would actually consider subscribing. It's free and you can always change your mind after. Let's continue with the video. Is not being played because a lot of people don't really like to be that uncomfortable by playing, you know? That's why a character like Ron Mei is so popular or so strong, is because with her OP buffs, she's extremely comfortable. Same thing with any sustain units like Aventurine. On top of his strong capabilities, extremely comfortable, and almost no one's going to die because of the perma shields he has. I have to admit, in my opinion, if you do not have an E6 Yukong, I don't think you should be touching this character. However, if you do have an E6 Yukong, there is some play with this character. It's just that it's up to you if you want to put the time and effort in it, you know? And that's why I think she drops into value. She can bring a lot to the table, don't get me wrong, but it just takes so much effort, not only from Yukong, but the whole team build, you know? All of the relics that you have to manage by using Yukong. Now, I do have to admit, when you have a team that can adjust to Yukong's value, so let's say you would take a Dill composition, you know, you would put Dill there, Yukong, Sparkle, and maybe a Ho-Ho. If you would have that team, and you would have that team all the way to max value or max capability what the team can provide, that team can clear everything so efficiently and you will do insane amount of damage. And I think that is why Yukong is such an interesting character, because her buffing capabilities yet again are one of the better in the game. So that's why it's so frustrating for us as players that we want to use her crit rate and crit damage buff or even her imaginary buff, and we just cannot really use it well because it takes too much effort. Her amazing buffing capabilities is locked behind her restrictions from her kit, and that's why it's so frustrating to use Yukong. Now, another big reason, if we take Dill again for an example, because I think Dill's a very good example to take here, why would you use Yukong if again you could use Ting Yun, the other Fox girl in the game that we have, right? Ting Yun makes sure that Dill has ult uptime, makes sure that we have a lot of consistent damage, can even be skill point positive at times. Again, it's a very good asset and has a lot of value to her and brings maybe more to the table in certain team comps, right? So resources in Yukong might be a little bit of a waste as well. If you would build your Ting Yun instead, then you have not only consistent damage for your Dill compositions, but you also have battery. You have this battery unit for other compositions like Argenti or whatever. You know, you have Ting Yun can be put into way more situations. And Yukong just has a lot of niche to her. So there's a lot of reasons why you would not build Yukong, you know, and that's why I think a lot of people also leave her on the bench, even if she might be E6, even if she's E0. They don't want to touch her, they don't want to deal with this character, or they don't want to try to get the max out of her. I'm bringing up Dill the whole time, right? Because Yukong could be like an insane Dill support. However, what can Yukong bring to other teams, you know? If you would build Yukong, would she be good in a lot of teams? And I think that she has a lot of potential to dual DPS. But let's take an example DPS composition. Let's take Jing, Liu, and Blade, because they can both scale with crit rate and crit damage. let's say she buffs the whole party, you would have 2 stacks of roaring bowstrings, Jingli would take her turn, and then Blade would give his turn, you know? And then she would do her damage, and then Blade takes his turn, and then Blade will go ham. In some scenarios, the second DPS cannot even have the buff, right? Because the roaring bowstrings are already gone. With E6, you can then manage this better. So you can like let Jinyu take the turn, then you would lose a stack, then you go to Blade, and before Blade will do his damage, then you would ult on Yukong, you know, to get that roaring bowstring stack again. So that's what it is as well, you know. It can be very clunky to use from time to time. Now I do think that Yukong is going to be a very good hyper carry buffer. If you do want to use it, it would be easier to manage, so that's something to think about. But I think this, the overall value that Yukong provides is just locked behind her clunkiness and just the way her kit functions. Now, she's not impossible to build. She can be insanely, extremely good, but then again, it requires you so much effort and so much time that it might not be worth it to begin with, you know? I am still a believer in Yukong, me personally. If I would have my team setups completely like built and there's room for messing around, I'm still trying to get some teams going and perfect them, you know? When that is all perfected, I'm 100% going to make another video on Yukong to maybe show what her capabilities are and what we can maybe get out of her if you do play it correctly and you build your team correctly. But for now, also with all the upcoming new characters, you know, all the new Harmony characters, all the new metas, you know, we have Break now as well, where you don't really need crit rate and crit damage. There's a lot of things that Yukong, she's not even an option anymore, right? The longer the game goes on, the less value Yukong will bring, and there's probably at some point going to be another character that will both give crit rate and crit damage like her or even better, you know? So Yukong is still in an awkward position, and it's sad to see that a character with this much potential is being left in the dirt, you know? And there's probably a good amount of people out there that do use Yukong's full potential, but yet again, they have like crazy accounts or they really took the time with this character. So let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about Yukong. If you use Yukong, in what teams do you use Yukong? If you think she's a waste of time, if you used her before and now you dropped her for something else. You know, I would love to hear you guys' stories and takes on Yukong and why you guys think she's terrible or unusable, or why she's a very good unit and people are sleeping on her. I would love to hear you guys' takes on this, and make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, means the world to me if you could do that. Make sure to join the Discord. We're trying to grow the community even further. And if you want to support the channel even further, then become a member. I love you all, and I'll see everyone in the next video. Take care. Peace.